Another day, another Gym Leader Challenge League match at Full Grip Games. This week we have Craig taking on JD. This is round 3 of the Full Grip Games League night. Craig has 1 badge, JD has 3 badges, and the winner of this match will go on to the finals to earn another badge for themselves. We have Craig playing Metal on the left and JD playing Lost Zone Psychic on the right. And Craig starts with a Stellar Wish Jirachi in the active, finds only a skateboard off of that Stellar Wish. No other basic Pokemon benched. Not the best turn 1 for Craig with no other basics and no energy drop. So we'll see if JD can capitalize. He does have that Chimecho in the active, so he could search out a Pokemon and a supporter if he uses its attack. But he'll probably want to switch out into that Comfey to begin putting cards into the Lost Zone. And ideally, you want to find a Culver's Experiment or, a way to find Culver's Experiment. So that's why JD plays this Chimecho. I know a lot of other people play a different Chimecho that locks your opponent from playing Pokemon with abilities from their hand. But JD opts to play this Chimecho because it can find that Culver's Experiment. And off of the Pokestop, we actually see the Culver's Experiment does appear, but it is getting sent to the discard pile. Culver's is the engine that makes this deck run. It's a supporter that lets you draw 5 and put 2 of those cards into the Lost Zone. It is a race to 10 cards in the Lost Zone with this deck, so you can use Lost Mine, Sableye attack over and over to spread 12 damage counters everywhere you want them on your opponent's board as fast as possible. And only being able to put 2 cards in the Lost Zone this first turn, that's not terrible, but that Culver's is in the discard pile. JD does have the Shuppet benched, though, so if he can find Banette, he can get that Culver's out of the discard pile and play it on his next turn. So not at the worst spot for JD, but as you saw, he also didn't have an energy attachment for an attack this turn. And over to Craig's side of the board, he has a Stellar Wish ability used. Nest Ball is found, and Craig is going to find the Zacian. Not a common card you see in a lot of metal decks, but Craig was telling me he opted to play the Zacian because he wanted another basic attacker. Doesn't play Fire Energy for Heatran, only plays the Metang with basic energy, no Bronzong either. And so paired with Archaludon, Zacian can get in there for 130 damage, has good attack power. Cobalion can't do that until late in the game. Heatran requires fire energy, so not the best option. And even though Zacian can't attack on the following turn, Craig also does play the Archaludon that gives it free retreat, so it's easy to reset that effect of the attack. And with an attachment to the Zacian, it's a very slow start from Craig. We'll see if JD can capitalize on this. He does have a Battle Compressor. He hit 3 items off that Pokestop, which is honestly very common in this deck. He plays so many items, and it's a great option for the deck. He is going to use Night Stretcher to get back an energy into his hand. Maybe going to use that Chimecho attack this turn, or retreat into the Comfey and continue putting cards in the Lost Zone. Random Receiver being played, which says reveal the top cards of your deck until a supporter is found there. And it looks like a Raihan is the grab off of that, or is that a Clay? Sorry, that is a Clay, which says discard the top 6 cards of your deck, which we'll see JD do here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards, my mistake. And you get to keep any items you find there. So only 2 found there. 4 cards go to the discard pile. Tulip and a couple energies. Level Ball being found there can grab. We'll see what JD wants to grab here. That Unknown is the grab. It has the ability Farewell Letter, which says you can discard it from your bench to draw a card. It's just another way to dig through the deck, and you can recover it multiple times with things like Rescue Stretcher and Rescue Carrier to just see the next few cards, because you want to dig, you want to find your cards that can get stuff into the Lost Zone. You want to find your Comfey, you want to find your Culver's Experiment, your Lost Blender, your Lost Vacuum, everything like that. Comfey finally comes into the active using its flower selecting ability, and we go up to 3 cards in the Lost Zone on JD's side. still a pretty slow start. Round 1 this evening, JD was able to get a turn 2 Lost Mine off on against Jack's grass deck, and that is almost an unbeatable position for the Lost Zone deck at that point. JD then went on to beat me in round 2. He played red card on his first turn, going first, and I never was able to draw out of it. Give me flashbacks to Marshadow. But red card is a disgusting card. Over to Craig's side. Would love to see an attack this turn. That Matang did get evolved, so we could get enough energy onto that Zacian to begin swinging. That Crystal Cave is taken off of the Stellar Wish and put into play immediately. An interesting choice from Craig because you have no damage on your board yet. You might want to save the Crystal Cave until JD begins placing damage so you can heal that off. But we did see JD already play his Field Blower earlier to get rid of his escape board on the Jirachi. So that means his only other option to get rid of the Crystal Cave is a Stadium or a Lost Vacuum of his own. And if Lost Vacuum targets the Crystal Cave, then it's not adding an extra card to JD's Lost Zone. So maybe that is the reason Craig decided to put it into play now. We'll see how that plays out. Craig does take the first knockout of the game onto that Comfey, but we see JD recover it immediately and continue digging through the deck. Really looking for a Versus Seeker or Bennett to get that Colress's Experiment out of the discard pile so he can play it. And just as I was talking about, there is the Lost Vacuum getting rid of that Crystal Cave immediately. There will be no healing from Crystal Cave on Craig's side. But JD's still not really finding the pieces he needs to get that Colress's Experiment out of the discard pile. No Mewtwo Mind Report, no Bennett, and no Versus Seeker. I wonder where all those cards are. His deck is getting thin. He'll need to find those quickly to achieve his game plan and get the win here, because Craig does not have the best setup. A couple Lost Mines could wipe his board. He has to use Versus Seeker for that Mallow and Lana switch effect to reset Zacian's Brave Blade attack. Rescue Carrier being played here to get back that Comfey that was knocked out for the second time, as well as that Unknown with the Farewell Letter ability. Now that Mew has free retreat, can get back into the Comfey, and JD goes up to 6 cards in the Lost Zone. Still not seeing a Versus Seeker or anything that can get JD that Colress's Experiment. Acrobike being played, Trainer's Mail being played. Can he find the Versus Seeker here? Unfortunately does not. There is a Hisuian Heavy Ball. The deck is so thin. Unfortunate for JD to be whiffing these key cards to get that Colress's Experiment back. That one Pokestop at the beginning has slowed JD down very much. Hisuian Heavy Ball here. We'll see what JD grabs. There is the Mind Report Mewtwo in the prize cards, but now JD can get that Colress's back onto the deck with that Mind Report Mewtwo. When it is benched, you can put a supporter card from your discard pile on the top of your deck. Farewell Letter draws a card, and will we see Mewtwo being benched? Mewtwo, yes, is benched here. Colress is going to go on top of the deck. Does JD have a way to draw it? He does not. It is just a pass from JD. 6 cards in the Lost Zone. Can probably get to 10 next turn. And here we see a Parallel City on Craig's side. JD easily discarding that Mewtwo and that Chimecho. They probably will not see any play here. But this does bench lock JD, although he'll have a spot once Craig takes a knockout here. And Craig smartly plays the N, which forces both players to shuffle their deck and draw new cards equal to their prizes. And that is a great supporter here, because that Colress's Experiment was at the top of the deck, and now it is in a random spot. It is possible JD drew it here, but it could just be back at the bottom of the deck, eluding JD once again. We'll see if he finds it. Craig has to retreat the Zacian because of its attack effect. It can't attack back-to-back turns when Brave Blade is used. So lots of switching needed here. Still only the 3 Pokemon in play for Craig. but that Buddy Buddy Poffin is taken off the Stellar Wish. We'll see what he grabs here. Does decide to get the Varoom, and if Revavroom can get powered up, Craig can churn through the deck a little easier. Only 2 prize cards taken on Craig's side, so still a lot of game to be played. JD could easily take this game still. No backup attackers set up on Craig's side, and Craig has to also pass this turn, giving JD some extra hope. We see Dusclops come into play. It is an addition to many Lost Zone decks now, to add some additional damage counters and really devastate your opponent's board when necessary. Interestingly enough, though, that JD only plays the Dusclops, does not play the Dusknoir, which can do 13 damage counters. JD told me that he thinks just the Dusclops is enough to really make a difference, those 5 extra damage counters. Now, Colress Experiment finally was played, or was it? No, Comfy was used. Colress's Experiment in hand. Now Colress will be played. That deck is looking ultra thin. I think only 1 card left in deck. 7 cards in the Lost Zone. This will only put JD up to 9. Lost Vacuum and Lost Blender have both been used. And Bennett is still not in play, so unless he drew it here, he'll be stuck at only 9 in the Lost Zone, unfortunately. That Lost Vacuum targeting that Crystal Cave instead of one of JD's own cards, as you can see, would have put him to 10. So it is paying off that Craig put that Crystal Cave into play early and JD was forced to target it with the Lost Vacuum. JD has to pass again with only 1 card left in deck. Not even 10 in the Lost Zone yet. How often does this happen in the Lost Zone deck? I feel like when you get to this far down in your deck, you've had 10 in the Lost Zone for multiple turns at this point, so probably just some unfortunate sequences and draws on JD's side. The cards he saw in that specific order just did not come together in the way he would have most liked. That Bennett has to be prized at this point. There's no way it's that final card in the deck. So pretty poor prizing on JD's part as well, but he is still in it. Zacian can't attack back-to-back turns. There's not a lot of backup energy. Craig is putting a lot of other Pokemon into play that could easily be stalled on JD's side, or stalled if JD gusts them up and unable to attack, but I believe Craig plays a lot of switch-outs. Metal Maker being used, that Matang ability, look at the top 4 cards and attach any number of basic metal energy you find there to your Pokemon, putting 1 onto that Dialga. Zacian going back in for another Brave Blade. Craig goes down to only 3 prizes remaining. Now JD still needs 1 in the deck, or 1 in the Lost Zone to get up to 10, but only has 3 cards in the deck. If Colress's Experiment is played here with that Versus Seeker, JD will deck out at this point. And I think if you only play Colress's Experiment with 3 cards in the deck, you just draw those 3. You don't get to put any in the Lost Zone. So that's not really the play he wants to make here. He has to recover the Comfey to put that 10th card in the Lost Zone. We see him pulling Tulip out of the discard pile with Versus Seeker to use, getting back Mewtwo, Farewell Letter Unknown, and Energy, and that Comfey. And that Comfey will be necessary to put that 10th card in the Lost Zone, and then JD just needs a switch out in order to use Lost Mine, but he does need a bench space as well, so that will require popping that Dusclops and giving Craig an extra prize. But Zacian can't attack this turn. JD could target the Matang to prevent any energy acceleration, which it does look like that is what he's going to target down. Craig takes a prize. Now there is space for that Sableye Pal Pad being played to put back a couple supporters, making sure he doesn't deck out just yet. Tulip is one of the choices, as well as Colress's Experiment. I'm not sure what other good options are in JD's discard pile, but I can't really imagine Colress's experiment being played again at this point. There's just too few cards left in JD's deck. Scoop Up Net was in hand to bring that Mew with the Memories of Dawn ability back into the active. That allows it to use the benched Sableye attack. Lost Mine. If there is 10 cards in your Lost Zone, you can place 12 damage counters wherever you'd like. And he is going to knock out Jirachi and Metang. Zacian can't attack again this turn, so this could be the comeback that JD needs. Craig has to find a way to retreat and attack. I'm not sure if there's a way. Raihan probably is the only way. That Duraludon is coming down, but since it can't evolve this turn, there is no free retreat happening. And Craig does not play the Bronzong. Metal Saucer is also an option, so a combination of a few cards could get Craig there, but he's betting it all on the Tate and Liza. We'll see if this draw of 5 can get him the attack he needs to continue putting the pressure onto JD. And we see the Metal Saucer and an Energy there. That is exactly the combination of cards Craig needed to pull off an attack with this Dialga. Metal Saucer and an attachment for turn. We'll fully power it up, and then Zacian can retreat. And Craig can go in with Metal Blast for 120 damage, putting him down to only a single prize card remaining. And Dialga has 130 HP, so Lost Mine cannot take the one-hit KO, even if all those damage counters are placed onto that Dialga. Dialga is probably the best attacker against the Lost Zone deck, being able to repeatedly hit 120 damage once it's powered up, has 130 HP, no downside to the effect of the attack, so you can continue using it over and over. And we'll see if JD has any response here. Hisui and Heavy Ball checking the prizes, so he knows everything he has access to. JD is master at this deck. Does he see a way out? He does not. JD concedes, shows us the prizes. Yep, that Banette is prized as well as that Guzma. That Guzma would have been his only win condition at this point, potentially being able to stall that Zamazenta. But if Craig had been able to get that Archaludon, the new Archaludon, powered up, he would have had free retreat anyways. So not a lot of options left for JD at that point. Craig takes it and moves on to the finals, which I will be posting on Thursday. Please check it out.